Welcome everyone, this is Honest Restart, and this time we're talking about Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and what exactly is going on with this diminutive guardian and this thing he's doing in the demo that could perhaps be suggesting a different kind of ending for the Age of Calamity and something that may not actually be occurring in Breath of the Wild. That's what we're talking about today. Now, if you do not want to be spoiled, if you want to see what's going to happen in the demo in your own way, if you want to play the demo, this is your warning. We're going to be talking about what happens in the demo. There will be some spoilers, so you have been warned. Now, before we jump into things, I want to quickly talk about my social media. There is a Twitter page, a Discord community, a Patron page, and a Twitch channel. If you are interested in any of that, check it all out. It's linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, subscribe. So the reason we're talking about this game, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, having a potential different ending than the actual Age of Calamity before the events of Breath of the Wild, is because of what we see from this mini Guardian and what it does at the very beginning of the demo. So we see this cutscene to open up the game, and basically it shows what's happening at the end of the battle, when Link is falling, when Zelda activates her powers and starts using her divine goddess powers to take out the Guardians, and Link falls in battle. That is the end of the Age of Calamity, or at least right before the end, before Link is taken to the Shrine of Resurrection and then Zelda goes to help fend off Ganon for 100 years. Assuming that all ends the way we think it would, that would lead into the events of Breath of the Wild. But something interesting happens. As Zelda activates her powers, going back to her room back at Hyrule Castle, her little study, we see a box, and it falls, and this power activates this little Guardian, and the Guardian jumps through time. That's right, it jumps through time from the end of the Battle of Calamity to before the battle and the Age of Calamity. And it wants to follow Zelda throughout the demo. It's attracted to Zelda for some reason. And it's something that's helping out Zelda. It's not an enemy, but they do bring that into question, which I think is important for later in the video when we get to that part. But the point is here, by time traveling, it seems something has changed. They even show the tapestry this time, and the tapestry is different. You see, the tapestry in Breath of the Wild, both Link and Zelda, the heroes, are fighting the Calamity Ganon, and they are surrounded by a whole bunch of Guardians. Now, this is based off of a legend, and it's supposed to sort of mimic what Link and Zelda are doing, but the idea behind it is that that's what's going on. They are surrounded by a whole bunch of Guardians, but in this new form of the tapestry, we see the little Guardian instead of another one of the big Guardians right behind Zelda, implying there's some sort of change here, a difference. So then, does that mean that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is going to end differently than the events leading up to Breath of the Wild? Is that possible? I think it is possible, and there's a few different reasons why. One, because time travel and different continuities isn't something new to Zelda. We've seen that several times, actually. And the best example would be the big timeline split in Ocarina of Time, where there are 3 different timelines. And then, of course, there was also time travel in Skyward Sword, but that time travel, from what we've known, they didn't tell us there were any splits at that time, but it was just simply part of the entire continuity there. So there have been sort of different interpretations or different ways of going about time travel and how that can affect the story in different parts of Zelda. So I guess this begs the question, is this Guardian jumping through time a part of the story? Was it always a part of the events leading up to Breath of the Wild? Or is this suggestive of a different continuity? Is that first continuity where everything ended the way it did what leads up to Breath of the Wild, but with the Guardian jumping through time, is it creating another continuity where the Age of Calamity ends differently? Perhaps where Zelda does get a chance to protect everyone. In other words, all those that died, the champions, is it possible that they survived the Age of Calamity? I think there's a possibility of that, and I'm not sure. I'm not saying 100% that this is what's going on, but what's interesting about this is that by bringing in this Guardian and having it doing the time travel, this is no longer a question of, oh, they're just telling us what happened before Breath of the Wild, filling in all the gaps, the things we didn't see. That might still be the case, but now there's this big question, is this another continuity? Is there a chance that the champions and others will survive this battle, and that it won't end the way it did, and everything won't be the way it was, as we saw in the beginning of Breath of the Wild. That's the question that's going to be on our minds playing through this game, and I actually think that's brilliant, because now, going into this prequel story, we're not sure how it's going to end. Beforehand, we were all assuming that because this is a prequel story, we know exactly how it's going to end. The champions will die, Link will fall, Hyrule will be destroyed, and then, of course, that all leads into the events of Breath of the Wild, where Link comes back after 100 years and restores peace to Hyrule by defeating Calamity Ganon. We don't know how exactly things are going to transpire, and that, to me, is very exciting, because now we have even more questions going into the story. Of course, there's also the ominous figure, and exactly how we meet up with the champions. Those things we're still have a lot of questions about, and there is a belief that somehow Age of Calamity will tie into Breath of the Wild 2 in some way. Is it possible that this whole time travel thing impacts the ending, and this ending has some sort of significance with Breath of the Wild 2? Will Breath of the Wild 2 have some sort of big time component as well? There's a possibility of that. But I want to go back to the idea that maybe the ending will not change. Maybe the ending will be the same, and this is some sort of self-fulfilling prophecy here. Because in one of the cutscenes in Age of Calamity, the demo, we do see a small little guardian that looks to be a corrupted version of our mini guardian that is the time traveler that seems to be helping Zelda. Now, I'm not trying to say that this mini guardian is an evil guardian with evil intent. I actually think its intent is to help Zelda and perhaps change time, and maybe that does still happen. But I think another argument can be made here. I think perhaps it is the destiny of this mini guardian to be corrupted. You see, as the guardian is jumping through time to go back in time to hopefully change the past, there is that malice rushing towards the little dimensional rift going back in time. To me, that looks like the same kind of malice that gets into the guardians and corrupts them. And looking at that other mini guardian that we see hiding, spying on Zelda and the others at the end of one of the missions, it looks to be a corrupted version of the mini guardian. And obviously, looking at the study, there was a mini guardian at some point put in that box throughout the Age of Calamity events, because Zelda does not recognize this mini guardian. So at some point they find a mini guardian. So maybe this mini guardian at some point or another will be corrupted and will actually contribute to the Age of Calamity and how things end up actually being the way they are. And when we see this guardian jumping through time, it's simply a part of a timeline loop, kind of like what we see in Skyward Sword, with both the old and young Impa and Zelda being held throughout time in that little crystal thing. It could be like that, and not like Ocarina of Time, where it creates a split and there are different continuities. There are possibilities here, and we don't know exactly how Nintendo and Koei Tecmo and the Zelda team are going to be handling this. And actually, on the note of both Koei Tecmo and the Zelda team working on this project, I know some people are going to argue, well, this is a spin-off, they're doing something different here, that's why they're going to have this time-traveling guardian to change the story so it ends differently and it has a happy ending instead of a negative, depressing ending like the way it goes in Breath of the Wild. I want to stress that the Zelda team is working closely with Koei Tecmo here, implying that this story is canon. They've told us that this game is explaining the events leading up to Breath of the Wild. Now, this whole time travel thing could be a curveball here, so we don't know exactly what's going to go on, but it also could be the case that it's simply saying what exactly transpired, and we are not entirely sure. So that's what's exciting about this. Going into the story for Age of Calamity, we don't know how it's going to end. It may end up being the case that things will end exactly as we thought they would, but now we're not sure, and because of that uncertainty, I think that's going to make the story a little bit more interesting. We don't know what's going on. There's a lot of new elements here, and playing through Age of Calamity, it's going to be fun to find out how that all comes together. It's exciting, and I'm really, really hyped for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I do think that maybe this could help to build up more story elements that support Breath of the Wild 2 potentially, and as we play through the game, there may be something there. Considering that the Zelda anniversary is next year and Breath of the Wild 2 is likely coming out next year and Age of Calamity is closing out this year, I do feel like Nintendo's going to want to do something with Age of Calamity to lead into the big hype cycle for Breath of the Wild 2, but we shall see. But what do you guys make of this mini guardian traveling through time and potentially changing the story and the events of the Age of Calamity? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching. and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.